Hey, folks, this is Rabble Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tornado Tony Pentagon and Psychic Tom Paget with his crystal ball a bit humbled.
Well, oh man, I could have won $1,000. I couldn't bet because I was in Maine. I didn't think to do it when I was in New Hampshire last week. So I had a feeling Justin Gaethje was gonna pull it out, but I did not expect him that way. But I knew Alex Pereira had a good shot of beating Blachowicz, so I had him on half the scorecards, and then I did the fantasy thing again on FanDuel, and I think I had two lineups that were all winners. Just weren't the right winners to get $1,000. But Derek Lewis would have been the one because he was like $11, and I had him as the MVP on one lineup, and I made the dumbest mistake. I put his opponent on the same lineup. I thought I had double checked all that shit, and then I go and look at the lineup while the fights are in action. I'm like, because you can't change it then. That one still won a little bit of money, but man, I blew it. I picked Bobby Green. Kevin Holland, I was correct there. I was the psychic last week when I said, yeah, Chiesa has been doing the announcing a little bit too long. He's just not there anymore. And Kevin Holland really showed that one freaking round. Ended up getting him in a choke, which is very rare because Chiesa is like a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that's crazy. But Holland got the job done pretty quickly. Chiesa really had like maybe 2 seconds where he looked like he could come back, and then he got smothered again. So I kind of knew that was going to happen. Gabriel Bonfim, he was expensive, but I picked him on one of my cards because he's probably going to get a first round finish. And he did. So that was good. Jake Matthews was another one that was a high scoring submission. So, but Roman Kopylov, I had him on 90% of my cards. I had a feeling he was going to handle Ribeiro. CJ Vergara was one of the ones that was not a high scoring win, but I think I created a clip somewhere of Conor McGregor saying, "It's not a spar, lads." He was getting pissed about a couple of the Ultimate Fighter fighters there not going full bore, in his opinion. But CJ Vergara and Benicio Salvador had that kind of a fight. It's just like, it was very close in a lot of the announcers' eyes. It ended up being a unanimous decision for Vergara, who I thought did just enough to win, but Vinicius was just like doing too many flashy bullshit moves and dancing. And it reminded me a little of the capoeira there, where it's all dance, it's all entertainment. There's no real contact. There was a lot of just dancing around. But Vergara seemed to have a little bit more crisper punches, and but it did. The announcers even said at one point, "This is kind of like a sparring match." But yeah, it's probably not what you should be doing. Trying to get the attention of the bosses in the UFC. But Roman Kopylov, he got a head kick knockout in the second round, 33 seconds in, and it was brutal. Watching it full motion, and having him on all my cards, I was so great. Euros Medic was another one that I was not surprised him beating Matthew Semmelsberger. I knew, his nickname's the Doctor, and he just basically cuts people up and knocks people out. So this one was kind of late breaking. Took to the third round, but you get him with a spinning back fist and punches. And Semmelsberger's been, tying together some wins here and there for some big people. And also had Miranda Maverick in the MVP slot on one of my winning cards with Priscilla Cachoeira getting armbarred in the third. 2 minutes and 11 seconds in there. And then Jake Matthews was a big one. He beat Darius Flowers by rear naked choke in the second round. 2 minutes and 37 seconds into that one. And man, you could tell he was on short notice. He didn't last very long. He looked tough for about the first 30 seconds. That was it. But Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier in the main event was a big one. Went into the second round. Dustin looked like he was hanging in there, and then he got hit with the head kick from hell. Just a beautiful setup, and then wham, hit him with it. And Poirier was all over the place. It was tough. Very surprising. Justin Gaethje was pretty cheap too, so if you had him in the lineup there, you probably did well. I had to hedge my bets, but I did like 8 lineups on FanDuel and 4 on DraftKings. DraftKings actually I ended up winning more money. I won like half my money back on FanDuel, and then all of it, and then some back on DraftKings. Then there's of course, the co-main event: Alex Pereira and Jan Blachowicz. That was a split decision win for Pereira. The guy is learning. He's learning. A guy like Blachowicz likes to drag you down and wear you out. And Pereira had a couple times where his gas tank could have been drained, and he pushed it a little extra, and that's probably what got him the win in the judges' eyes. But Blachowicz also gassed out in the third bad. And got beat up a little bit. But Pereira just seems like not only his takedown defense, but his range finding and his own hands up defense needs to change if he's going to be competitive. Because he gets hit with a lot of cheap shots because he's not concentrating on defense. He's wading in with his hands by his chest, and he's just trying to set up a punch. But he's just like too much of a one punch at a time fighter as far as MMA goes too. He needs to string together combinations, and he needs to start throwing kicks and elbows. Like man, but as a fresh new guy in the sport, he's obviously as a co-main event fighter here, turning enough heads that they put him in that slot. But, man, he lucked out that Blachowicz was late dying, basically died out, got tired. But the big surprise of the night, of course, was Derek Lewis beating Marcos Rogerio de Lima by TKO in just 33 seconds. And if I had known that this was the last fight on his contract, I probably would have gone with that $11 price tag on all the lineups. Because he's capable of it. He's got one of the longest, not longest, but the most knockouts. Like second or third on the list of most knockouts in the UFC, I think. Probably most first round knockouts, I would say. I don't know if that's true. But man, Marcos Rogerio de Lima came running across the cage, and then Lewis came running faster and got his fat ass off the ground and hit the dude with a flying knee. Now, not only did not many people have Derek Lewis winning that fight, but I mean, if there was a prop bet for him landing a flying knee, it probably would have been $1 million to 1.
-8,000.
It was beautiful, though. Obviously.
And don't forget the best post-fight interview ever.
Oh yeah, took his shorts right off beforehand. Running around in his underwear. Talking about busting his his wife's guts or something. Oh man, it's just like, geez, this guy just pull punches. But anyway, yep. So that was that card. We got another one coming up this week. You got both Bellator and UFC, and of course we had the Crawford fight. I didn't watch the entire thing, but when I tuned in, it was like the fifth or sixth, and Spence's nose was already all fucked up. I watched basically the beginning and the end. I didn't watch. I think to the very end. There was like a lull in the UFC fights, and I put it on.
You know, my one friend, him and his fiance were having a like he invited us over. He goes, "Hey, you want to watch the fight?" We're like, "Yeah, you know." And he goes, "I want to get this one." He goes, "You guys do a lot for me." He goes, "I want to get this one." And I said, "Well, at least let me pick up the food." So that's what we did. You know, we went over there and we even got the dog down in the basement. She doesn't usually go down in the den down there, but we got her down there. And you know, the undercard was mediocre at best, to be totally honest, mediocre at best. But the Spence Crawford fight, you know, you're right. If you were talking like, how did you think this was going to happen? They even said in the second round, like if you had on your bingo card, Crawford second round knockdown on a jab, you know, who would have had that? Well, here's my analysis of the fight. What I had picked to happen would be Crawford's versatility and to be the difference. My concern was, as I said last week, is if he gave up too many early rounds, similar to what Marvin Hagler did against Sugar Ray Leonard. And whether you thought Hagler did enough to win that fight or not, he made it challenging on himself by giving up basically the first 4 rounds. Now you got to win 7 out of 8. So that was, you know, a concern I had going into this fight for Crawford. I picked Crawford to win. I thought he would win clearly 8 to 9 rounds, but one judge would have it as well.
Yep.
Fight starts out. It was very, very tactical first round, and if you saw the fight, one of the things that I picked up on was at no point did I see Crawford fight out of the orthodox stance.
Yeah.
Usually he comes out orthodox, and then by the second or third round is when he makes the full switch to southpaw. And then sometimes he'll go back and forth, but usually he'll stay mostly in a southpaw stance. Yeah. Like I said, at no point do I ever remember him fighting that fight in the orthodox stance. First round, very tactical. I shaded towards Spence due to a higher volume of punches. Not that any of them really landed or were significant, but he just threw more. So I shaded Spence the first round. Second round, once again, tactical. Crawford was starting to open up a little bit more, and then he throws that 1-2-1 basically, 1-2, and then he lands a jab, and it was a hard jab. I mean, so it was about 13 seconds or 15 seconds to go around. He knocks Spence down. Spence gets up, and I remember thinking, I'm like, that was more than a flash knockdown. That was a significant punch because Spence looks a little rattled here. Mm-hmm. Bell ends, and basically the fight was over at that point. Crawford was using a jab that reminded me of a southpaw welterweight Sonny Liston because it was punishing. I mean, it was painful, and you could see that when that jab landed, it was like a sledgehammer was hitting him right in the face every time. And you could see it, really breaking him down, busting him up. You could see he was landing some good body punches in there. And then by the 7th round, he had Spence pretty beat up. That's when he scored 2 knockdowns in the 7th. And the first knockdown, I didn't even see the first punch. He brought that right hand up as an uppercut. I didn't even see it. I saw Spence land a punch. And then I saw Crawford land like a chopping right hook, and Spence go down. I'm like, man, was he off balance? That right hook didn't seem like it was that much.
Well, that's what I noticed is that Crawford, I think his dynamic to me that is different than any other fighter is normally any other fighter that punches like him would get yelled at for slapping their punches, but he goes in there and slaps punches that knock people out. He turns them over so uniquely, so quickly.
His timing, his timing was impeccable.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like 3-dimensional chess against a kid in checkers. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And Spence is kind of like a Joe Louis. Someone once said about Joe Louis. Joe Louis was a very scientific boxer from the waist up, but his movement. And if you notice in the corner, Eric was trying to tell Spence angles. Well, Spence doesn't train angles. He just goes straight forward.
Yeah.
And there was no plan B. Think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad one. Nonito Donaire lost the unanimous decision too on the undercard.
Yeah, that wasn't that really entertaining of a fight. I thought it would be a little bit better of an effort. To be totally honest, it was just that was a ho-hum fight. It really was.
And there was a couple upsets, I guess you could call them. Giovanni Cabrera losing his undefeated record, falls to 21-1 with a split decision loss over
Cabrera did not impress me whatsoever.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a guy that was trying to give you Sominex, and not by his punching power. I mean, he was fighting off his back foot. He was continuously holding, and his punches had no body in them whatsoever. We're watching this fight, and we're like, the only compliment that my one friend gave him was he goes, in a way, he looked a little bit when he had like the longer hair in the front. He goes, he facially resembled Arturo Gotti late in Gotti's career. Maybe I think it was Gotti's last fight against Alfonso Gomez. And I'm like, yeah, well, he fought absolutely nothing like him. There was a lot of holding. It was a sloppy fight. Cruz brought the fight to him, and it shouldn't even been as close as it was.
Well, there you have it. This is an interesting one. Some 5-0 dude named Yoenis Tellez knocked out Sergio Garcia. Only his third loss, 34-3 now. Sergio Garcia. Must be slipping. 5-0 guy. For that, you're going to like this guy's opponent's name. Steven Nelson stayed undefeated. He moved to 19-0 over Rowdy Legend Montgomery. The unanimous decision win there over Rowdy Legend Montgomery. That's his name. 10-4-1. Jose Salas Reyes also staying undefeated. He moves to 13-0. He got a TKO as well over Aston Palicti, who is 28-6-1 now at Super Bantamweight. All on the T-Mobile Vegas Crawford Spence card. But yeah. Imagine being able to beat a guy like Sergio Garcia. Your 6th fight professionally. Knock him out too. That's crazy. Okay. Schedule. Do we have this weekend? Oh, we have, I know it's not the biggest boxing match, of course, but we have the big Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul Murderfest. I think that's this weekend. I don't think Jake is going to lose this fight. I keep hearing. Diaz not very well trained for the crossover. It's a big surprise, not probably taking it as serious as he should. Got some fights tomorrow night in Panama City on ESPN Knockout, ESPN Plus. Derek Cuevas, number 51 at welterweight in the world, 25-1-1 against Alberto Mosquera, who's 28-5-2. And we got Azael Villar, 19-2-3 against Gerardo Zapata, who is 14-1 at light flyweight. Nothing spectacular. We go over to Ireland on Friday, Sean McCollum 16-1 against Alejandro Moya 17-1 at super lightweight for a title, WBO European super lightweight title. And another one on Friday on DAZN, Elijah Pierce 17-2 super bantam fighting Mike Polania, who's 28-2. And co-main event there, or next best thing on that card, is Gabriel Muratalla, who is 9-0, fighting Edwin Rodriguez, who's 11-6-2. And we got stuff on Showtime too. Friday. Jordan White 14-1 against Erickson Garcia 17-0 at super featherweight. Must be a showbox thing. Esteban Falco, who's 12-2 at lightweight, fighting James Bernardin 10-1-1. Paul Kroll 10-0-1, fighting Guido Emmanuel Schramm. That's, I guess, our Guido fighter of the week. Schramm.
That's interesting. I used to work with a guy that was very good friends with Paul Kroll. And yeah. Kroll was a highly touted prospect, and then he had a little bit of a bump with some legal issues. And he had one fight when he came back, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head his opponent's name, who's going on to do very well since. And Paul's kind of been languishing, and it'd be nice to see him get back up on track again.
Yeah. It would be nice if I could get to this next championship weight. From Kobe, Japan here, we've got Montserrat Alarcon, 18-4-2, fighting Yuko Kuroki, who is 21-7-2 for the WBA and WBO World Atomweight Championship. Atom, ATOM. Is that lighter than minimum weight? It must be. How's that work?
What was the weight class again? I didn't hear that.
Atom weight. ATOM.
Atom weight?
Atom weight.
I've never heard that weight class before. I'll have to look up and see what that is. I've never heard that one before. I heard, you know how some organizations give different name?
Yeah.
You'll have 140 pounds. You have one organization calls it junior welterweight. The other one calls it super lightweight.
Yeah.
But the same weight class. So now it's like you have with the men's division, 105 was either straw weight or minimum weight. It's the same weight class, straw weight, minimum weight. I've never heard of atom weight.
You can tell because it's like two belts on the line, world belts, right? And it's two people that have a bunch of losses fighting. One of them, number 2 in the world, with 7 losses. And it's like, it's not about the talent, it's about getting somebody at that weight, I guess. To fight each other.
All you got to do is, okay, this weight class is 97 pounds. All you got to do is step on the scale. Step on the scale, pay your sanction, and you're the champ of the world.
Yeah. We're getting there.
Tom, I remember that my freshman year in college boxing. There were 2 guys. It was out of Westfield University up in Massachusetts. And we were doing a show at place up in New York, SUNY Westchester. In fact, it was where I won my first match. My first match was on that beat a kid from Westfield. We had these 2 guys from Westfield, and they didn't have anybody in their weight class. So we had one of our guys. It was a little bit heavier. They were doing like a sparring session, right? So my guy on my team, his name was Josh. Josh knocked them both out. He knocked them both out. So knock this guy out, knock this guy out. So now these guys are getting ready for the regionals. They're both basically only time they were in the ring was that time. They both got knocked out. They show up to the regionals. One got on the scale at 112. One got on the scale at 119. They had nobody to fight to get to nationals. Now these 2 guys are fighting in the nationals. They're all Americans now. They're both basically 0-1. Wow. There were 3 guys in each weight class, 112 and 119. Both of these guys draw the bye. So they both go to fight for that title. They haven't won a fight. They're fighting for the national title. Guess what? Both of them got knocked out like the first round against Air Force guys. Basically, these two guys are silver medalists in the nationals without winning a fight. That's like this atom weight. It's like, yes, let me step on the scale. I'm champ of the world. Wow. What was the one I always talk about was Mark Too Sharp Johnson. I like Mark Too Sharp Johnson. He was a good fighter. He was skilled. He was fun to watch. 112 pounds. I guess that was considered, was that flyweight, 112? I think it was. So, because strawweight was the lightest, and then you had, I think junior flyweight was 108, and then I think flyweight was 112. Then you had 115 was junior bantam, 118 was bantam. Then you went to feather and so on and so forth. So Mark Too Sharp Johnson, champ of the world at 112, and he was calling out, I think it was either Michael Carbajal or Humberto Chiquita Gonzalez, calling out one of them. And he goes, it's time for you guys to step up with the big boys. I'm thinking, you're challenging somebody at 108 to step up to 112 and fight the big boys. The big boys.
And bring back the days we had 8 divisions. Bring back those one champ in each division.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, Tom? And here's an anecdote that I'm going to tell you guys. That I was going to start the story show up with. But it segues perfect now. When I was growing up, right, and you get your Ring magazine, your KO magazine, and they'd have the rankings. And at the time, you had a lot of American fighters, and you still had your foreign fighters. You had from Mexico, Puerto Rico, England. You were just starting to get the Russian invasion at the time. So you didn't really have like Russia and Ukraine in there yet. You were just starting to get that. And I remember I would see who the champions were, and it would say IBF, WBA, WBC. That was the only 3 they reckoned. So you'd say, okay, the WBA welterweight champion happens to be, and it could be so-and-so. It's like, okay, yeah, he's, 51 and 2 or whatever, but who's ranked? And you would see, and I remember one of the first guys I ever saw ranked, and I couldn't wait to see him fight, was Felix Trinidad. Because I remember he was like whatever an O, and he had almost all knockouts. And then he burst on and he knocked out Maurice Blocker to win his first title, and he became, a Hall of Famer. Now, Ring Magazine's like, you look at the rankings now, it's like, half these guys you don't even know. Because you have so much international, but you don't have the mainstream coverage that you got back even when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s. So, speaking of Ring Magazine, I hadn't gotten a Ring Magazine in a while. I've been a subscriber to Ring Magazine for 25 years now. Well, I haven't been getting my Ring Magazines, and I'm like, my dad said to me, he goes, do you have a subscription? I'm like, I think I do. He goes, you haven't got one in a while. I'm like, no, it's been a few months. And I'm like, I got to call them or email them or, something them or go online or something, because I don't remember getting a renewal notice, and I'm pretty sure my subscription's still active. So Monday, holy shit, I got a Ring Magazine, first one in a couple months. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited to read the preview of Spence Crawford. Mm-hmm. I said, let me read the preview of the fight that just happened 48 hours ago. Now, I let my dad open it first, and he was like, I want to test your knowledge. I said, okay. Because they had 20 people that were polled on who they thought was going to win the fight. And it was almost dead even. I think it ended up being like 10, 8, and 2. Like 2 people couldn't decide. And my dad would give me a name. And he would say, who do you think Tim Bradley says was going to win the fight? And I would think, what do I know about Tim Bradley? And I'm like, Tim Bradley was a pressure fighter. Tim Bradley, for a smaller guy, wasn't a knockout puncher, but he was a very methodical fighter. And I said, Tim Bradley's going to go with Crawford. He goes, you're right. He goes, what about Danny Garcia? I said, well, Danny Garcia lost to Errol Spence. He's going to say the guy that beat him is going to win. He's like, Errol Spence. And I'm like, take it down. And we were trying, then he would be like, Paul the Punisher Williams. I'm like, well, Paul the Punisher Williams was a tall, lanky South. He's definitely going to go with Spence. He's like, you're right. He went with Spence. And that was fun. He's like, who everybody was picking to win. And how I was guessing him right.
Well, that's a fun way to deal with a late delivery. Also, coming up on Saturday, we got a big fight with our former guest. A big female fight. But this one just is a standalone. They're throwing at us from some foreign country. Robin Krasnicki, 52-7 against Najib Mohammedi, who's 45-9. That's a light heavyweight fight. No belt. A lot of fights between those two. Then we go to Dallas on DAZN. Amanda Serrano, 44-2 with one draw, fighting Heather Hardy, 24-2. Both of them are former guests of ours. IBF, IBO, WBA, WBC, and WBO World Featherweight title. Somebody's going to be undisputed after this. 10-rounder, 2-minute rounds. And co-main event is going to be Alan Sanchez, 22-5-1 against Angel Beltran Villa, 17-1. Yeah, it's a welterweight. That's really it. This is a slow boxing week. Oh, there's Derek Chisora, just snuck out. He's on this Saturday. Yeah, where did that come from? Well, I saw Tuesday and then Saturday. Tuesday, Wednesday. Where am I looking at that? Oh, this is Saturday is the 5th, right? Okay.
Yes.
What the hell? It's the 12th. Derek Chisora is fighting Gerald the Jedi Knight. No. Is it Washington? Gerald Washington? What's his new name? Is it the Jedi Knight? No, that's another guy, right? That's Nobles. Gerald Washington. Different guy. Anyway, that's Dylan White and Anthony Joshua. Probably next week we're going to talk about. Okay. So I don't know who's on the undercard of Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz, but apparently nobody with a 2-star rating of a fight.
My friend is thinking about ordering that, and he's like, I want to see. My friend can't stand Jake Paul, and he goes, I'm hoping Diaz blasts him out of there, but he goes, it probably won't happen because he's, fighting out of his style.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, bro, because he was
slapping punches.
Saturday night, and he's like, yo, if you want me to go back to my house afterwards, we'll get people to watch it. I'm like, you want to order it, bro? I mean, that's on you.
Nate would probably be better off trying to win the slap fighting championship.
Yeah.
That Stockton slap thing does not work in boxing. He's going to get pummeled right down the middle by straight shots, I think. Well, he's just doing it for the money anyway, but still.
Jake is minus 4,000. That seems a little heavy, doesn't it?
I believe it.
Oh my God! No, 400. I'm sorry.
4,000.
No, I had my zero wrong. Now minus 400 as of today, and Nate was plus 310. So
it's basically 4-1 odds.
Yeah.
Okay,
that seems kind of heavy.
I mean, yeah, but when you said 4,000, I'm like, what is it, Tyson Douglas?
Yeah. Yeah.
For that, I'd be willing to throw 100 on Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody put like $15,000 on Holland the other night. They must have been listening to our show last week. Kevin Holland. I said he was going to beat the crap out of, what's his name? Chiesa. Anyway, we got another one this weekend. I believe this one's on free TV. ESPN. Yeah, UFC on ESPN 50. Main event. It's going to be from Nashville, Tennessee. I don't know if they're going to be playing country music. Corey Sandhagen in the main event. He is 16-4, fighting Rob Font, who's 20-6, and you never count Rob out. He is just unbelievable with the resilience and the comeback ability and the chin on that guy. I mean, he has been in some brawls lately. So Corey's no slouch. That one should be a decent fight. I like Rob now. Jessica Andrade, 24-11, fighting Tatiana Suarez, 9-0. Last time I put all in on Jessica, she let me down. Did not expect it to end the way it did. But this is probably a little bit better of a matchup, even though the girl's undefeated. See how this one goes. I definitely can bet on this one since I'll be down here in New Hampshire. Instead of doing the lineup, I'll probably do both this time. Anyway, light heavyweights, Dustin Jacoby, 18-7-1 against Kennedy Nchekwu, who is 12-3. Diego Lopez, 21-6 against Gavin Tucker, 13-2. At featherweight, we got another light heavyweight fight. Alexa Camor, 6-2 against Tanner Boser, who's 20-1. Ignacio Bahamondes, 14-4 at lightweight, fighting Ludovic Klein, who is 19-4-1. Tyler Phillips, 10-2 at bantamweight, fighting Raoni Barcelos, who's 17-4. Jeremiah Wells, 12-2 with one draw at welterweight, fighting Carlston Harris, who's 18-5. We got Billy Quarantillo in the fourth fight of the night, fighting Damon Jackson. Quarantillo 17-5, Jackson 22-5 at featherweight. And we got Cody Durden, 15-4 with one draw at flyweight, fighting Jake Hadley. 10 wins, 1 loss, and no draws. Sean Woodson before that in the second fight of the night at featherweight, 9-1-1, fighting Dennis Bazooka. 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 He is 11-2 featherweight. And then Odie, not Garfield's buddy, but Odie Osborne is 12-5, fighting Asu Almabayev, who is 17-2. Oh, tough fight. No cheap date there. So that's Saturday from Nashville. And we got Bellator 298 coming up. We didn't really go recap it, but it was like a recent thing last week. Bellator 298, Storley versus Ward. Logan Storley, he had a tough fight last time, but the champ there. Brennan Ward versus Logan Storley. That's the main event. Oh, this is next week. Sorry. This is the 11th. I'll go through it. Keep getting the 11th and this weekend. Screwed up. Okay. Logan Storley, he's 14-2. Brennan 17-6. Ward in that one. Co-main event there is Valentin Moldavsky, 11-3, fighting Steve Mowry, 10-0-1. Middleweights Dalton Rosta, who is 8-0, fighting Aaron Jeffrey, 13-4. James Gallagher back in action. He is 11-2 at featherweight, fighting James Gonzalez, who's 10-6. You know this guy's name, Sidney Outlaw, 16-5 at lightweight, fighting Islam Mamadov, who is 22-2-1. And then we got featherweights Lucas Brennan, 8-0, fighting Weber Almeida, 7-1. Bantamweights Enrique Barzola and Jalen Bates. Barzola 19-7-2, and then Bates is 7-0. Kai Kamaka III, 11-5-1 featherweight, fighting Ahmed Magomedov, who is 9-1. Oh, lighter fighters on this card. Female fight, Diana Avzaragova, who is 6-0, fighting Justine Kish, 8-6 at flyweight. Lightweights, Vladimir Tokov, 8-2, fighting Jairo Pacheco, who's 7-1. We got Diana Silva, 10-8 at featherweight, fighting Katerina Shakalova, who is 7-1. Sullivan Colley before that, he is 5-1, fighting Hamza Salim, who is 6-6 at light heavyweight. And a whole bunch of preliminaries. 7. Nobody recognized except maybe Leandro Higo at bantamweight. He is mixed in there. He's 21-6, fighting Nikita Mikhailov, who's 9-2. Some people making their debut even. First couple of fights. Did you hear about the rumor that got started that the UFC bought Bellator?
I didn't hear that one.
Oh, you didn't hear that? Oh, man. So what ended up happening is, I guess the status of a couple people changed. I think it was on Sherdog where they do the rankings and stuff like that. So the rankings, I guess MVP Michael Venom Page is like still under contract negotiations with Bellator. He doesn't know if he's going to re-sign with them. So suddenly, I guess it was a joke, but Sherdog put that guy and one other guy who was still under contract negotiations in UFC, on the UFC roster, and ranked them and everything. And so the rumor was going around that UFC had bought Bellator. But no, not true. Not yet, anyway. It is supposedly for sale, though. I have not even heard that. I guess Scott Coker has said it's for sale. I don't know if they're really shopping it, but it's definitely for sale. All right. What else we got for news? Let's see if we got any updates. Boxing updates. Whatever. Here we go. Google alerts. Boxing. Jake Paul, of course. I love it how Jake Paul is like every story, but then you go to BoxRec, the official tracking website of boxing, and this fight doesn't even show up. Not even one single fight on this whole card shows up as a 2-star fight. All right. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson will train Francis Ngannou ahead of the Tyson Fury fight. Oh, I still don't think it's going to make a difference. Just can't learn that much in that little time. See, he's going to have a knockout power chance, but I don't know. Fury's just a really abnormally large dude. He knows how to throw that weight around in boxing, and Francis is really not going to know that yet. Amanda Serrano announces surprise return to MMA with the PFL. She's also, I forgot about that. She's done the crossover. She's 2-0-1 in MMA, so she's technically still undefeated. Must have just signed. This just came through today. Rob Font vows to bring intensity and action. No shit. It's not a surprise at all. Okay. Yeah, anything? No. Hydration tests. Guess that's the thing in some of these MMA leagues. Any wrestling news, Tony?
Yeah, I do actually. And I don't know if Tom's ready to hear this, but I found out the harsh reality last week that wrestling might be scripted.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've heard it both ways. We need more research.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I went to you get a kick out of it. Like my Friday night was literally going to a minor league baseball game and meeting a 1990s wrestling legend. If you ever get a chance and you look up a guy, Charles Wright, he was known for two characters. Papa Shango in the early 90s when he was like the voodoo guy. He'd come in, he'd put spells on people with like a big skull. And then he became the Godfather, which was basically the wrestling pimp. And he was one of my favorites, especially back in the late 90s. He'd bring the girls to the ring with him and stuff. And now he's going to be at this minor league baseball game, and I'm like, I have to go. And I signed up for the VIP meet and greet. That way I would get to bond with both characters and get a chance to talk to them and get it signed and everything. So I go there, and I'm in the line, and I go in, and I get my picture with him. I talk to him and show him a picture of me dressed as him on Halloween the one year. And, and then he liked my Phillies outfit. So now they were going to have post-game wrestling matches. So now, basically, my night was made. The game hasn't even started yet. My night's already made. Mm-hmm. And as I'm really kicking around and I'm looking at the wrestling ring that's going to be used later, these two guys come up to me. The one guy had like a wrestling tank top, but a lot of people did because they were meeting a wrestler. And so I see these two guys and I'm talking to them and, hey, can we get a photo? I'm like, of course. And we do a photo together. We all make our fists and everything. So they go away. And bumped into a guy I know that runs a card store. He said, yo, you throwing out the first pitch? I said, yeah, in 3 weeks at Lehigh Valley. He goes, no, tonight. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I need someone to throw the first pitch on behalf of my business, my sponsorship. He goes, would you do it? You're perfectly dressed. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay. Like, well, I guess no practice. I guess I'm going to go out there and wing it. So go out there, throw the first pitch with a group of other people, and then the Godfather came out and he did his whole big thing on the mound and he threw out a pitch. Now I'm walking off the field and a little kid hands me a baseball and a pen. I sign it. So this makes it get even better, right? So there's a little bit of a rain delay. So now, because of the rain delay, some of the wrestlers that were going to wrestle after the game were like, shit, they might cancel us. So when the field was getting dried off, they said, can we go now? Let us go so we can at least make sure we get paid. So I go to watch the first match, and this guy comes out. He's got pinstripe pants on, a black shirt, suspenders, and a fedora and a baseball bat. He's called the Goomba. I'm like, this guy is awesome. I'm cheering him, right? I said, I got to get a picture of this guy. And then his opponent comes out. His opponent's dressed up as a Puerto Rican Randy Savage. I'm like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. I'm like, I got to get a picture with this guy. So match ends. They go, I can't find him again. The next day, these two blood enemies that wanted to kill each other in the ring were the same two guys that I got my picture with before the show started. And I said, wait a minute. I thought they were enemies. Mm-hmm. They were drinking together before the show. Yeah. Something suspicious. Then another guy came out, and he's the bad guy, and he's heckling the fans. And he looks at me, and he's like, you're dressed ridiculous. I'm like, I'm rooting for you. He's like, I don't want you to root for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to join that with the one guy. And I'll tell you, I had a ball. Now during the rain delay, the matches are going on. They're about to start the game. Next thing I know, all these kids are coming up to me for autographs. I'm like, I'm not one of the wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah, but you threw out the pitch. I'm signing baseballs. I'm signing people's body parts. Like, we don't have anything. Can you sign my arm?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Nice.
And then I recorded my first cameo video. Got my first official record.
I did see that one.
So, yeah, so my night was made.
Now, big question we have to ask, I guess. We don't have really a lot of other news or anything to discuss. What is next for Crawford? Who is going to give him a challenge? Is there anybody? Do we got to put him against Nia in a way? Like, who's going to do it at this point?
Man, I don't know. Well, you know what? I mean, it's hard to say now because I'm going to get to a name in a minute. But I think, in a way, still, I think is too small right now. I mean, as good as In a Way is, I mean, those two pound for pound, I mean, you almost like you're flipping a coin, but I would still go Crawford. I would still say Crawford, pound for pound. Now, the other guy Crawford whose name he mentioned was Charlo. But Charlo is now fighting Canelo. So, and then you have the other Charlo, Jamal, got slapped by Caleb Plant. You think that's got to come up soon.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one name that I think is the name that should be happening, and that's Boots Ennis.
Oh, yeah. Good one.
Don't mess around.
Yeah, he may not be perfectly ready, but who else? Who else?
I mean,
Not him.
Boots does have 32 professional fights, and he's been fighting high caliber, right?
Yeah.
Did you hear?
You know the old saying about, remember we were talking about Crawford's record, but there's an old saying, you can only beat who they put in front of you.
Right.
So in that sense, Boots has got to, I mean, if Crawford stays at 147, I can't imagine it not happening.
Yeah. I mean, and you're right, could Crawford then theoretically go to 154? Absolutely.
Clarissa Shields.
Yeah, there you go.
She actually made a call out of Keith Thurman. Not even joking. Thinks she can beat him. Keith Thurman. Battle of the sexes, I guess. She wants.
Yeah, right.
But Erin Toehill, I guess, fucked it up when we interviewed her last. But she had a post on Facebook about it, just ripping her to shreds. All her stupid. But yeah, she's been known for a boast or two. I just don't think that's wise to even start talking circus fights like that. Because guys like John Scully already don't want to see women get beat up by each other. Never mind the guy. That really pissed Scully off. Anyway, next week we're gonna have John Shattuck, old former guest of ours. Not just because we've been around a while, old, but he's getting gray hairs. He's still keeping busy. He was photographed with Butterbean, our other former guest today, and all kinds of former guests. DDP, he was doing some stuff with DDP.
Oh, DDP is great.
He had some kind of power cuffs or something that DDP is all about now. I don't know, weird stuff, but we'll have to ask him about all that. He's got some big stuff going on. He does the combat sports. He's into all kinds of tournaments and all that stuff with his kids, and he's got kids in the program he teaches and all that. So we'll talk to him next week, and then we're still gonna try to book Dan Severn. And then maybe
Yeah, Rich, you know who might be a really good guest for our show, and he responds to people on Instagram, is Mark Merrow.
Oh yeah.
You should reach out to him because he is doing so much right now for the community.
Yeah.
And remember when we got DDP on 10 or 11 years ago? You know, I remember you calling me up the one day. You're like, "Dude, we got Diamond Dallas Page on tonight." And I'm like, "No shit," because I'm a big wrestling fan. And you're like, "Hey, he's gonna talk about his yoga program." I'm like, "Wait, did you say Diamond Dallas Page is a yoga?" And I was laughing until we got him on. And then when he was talking about it, I'm like, "Man, this was some serious shit." And like I said, I've ended up doing a lot of the videos and how serious it was. Mark Merrow, who's a friend of Dallas Page, goes around and he does, school talks and he does talks at churches and everything. And I watched it. I met him last year. I watched one of them. I watched one of his about an hour-long presentation on YouTube, and I was floored. How really touching it was. And I bet you if you did a reach out to him, he'd agree to come on and talk to us about what he's been doing and how he's been positive influence, how he's rejecting the mistakes he's made.
Yeah, definitely. Give it a shot. I'll try anything twice.
What, did you try him already?
No. I'm just saying. I'll try it twice if it doesn't work first time. All right, that's I guess it for us for this week, and we'll keep an eye on the fights, see how it goes. We'll be back with the full report next week.
All right.
And I'll be
Sounds good.
getting ready to go to UFC at that point.
Nice.
Hopefully, tickets you wouldn't believe that the lowest amount of tickets that I've found for a fight in 2 weeks. Guess what the lowest amount for one ticket is.
Lowest? Probably about $750.
Oh, no, a little lower than that. 300. To get anywhere near the cage, or ground level with the cage, you're talking 1,200 minimum. But the $330 for balcony seats. That's the cheapest ones I found.
It's not that horrible. Because even when I went to Canelo, Danny Jacobs a couple years ago, that's what we paid for upper level seats.
Yes. Yeah, I guess I can't bitch when paper plates are $7. Saw that at the store the other day. I was like, what the fuck? When did paper plates become $7? Like 50 of them. Anyway. Up there. Okay, till next week. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, guys. Enjoy the fight.
Good night, gentlemen. See you later.
Adios.